In this small town where almost everyone knows each other, there was the so-called first guy in the village, the most prominent, the most uncomplexed, always in the center of attention, and he had no shortage of girls. But he skillfully navigated, not denying himself anything. Alyosha, that's what this handsome guy was called, became a key figure in his father's firm very early on, and not just because of family ties. He had the right education and possessed strong organizational skills. When his father died suddenly, he took his place. And suddenly, he noticed a girl who couldn't even dream of such a guy in her town. She was known as almost the most modest one, and by and large, she truly was. Anya knew Alexey, who didn't know him, but she wasn't personally acquainted with him. He had never noticed her. Anya remembered how many times Alexey had greeted her. You could count them on the fingers of one hand. But here he was, approaching her himself, not talking about the weather. He said the weather was perfect for a walk and asked if Anya minded joining him for one. How could Anya react? She tried her best to hide her embarrassment and joy at the unexpected proposal. She had dreamed for so long that this handsome young man, who was also an excellent handball player, would notice her. Anya even started going to handball games as a fan because Alexey played. Then he left. People said he went to study far away. Some even said abroad. But in the town, they said he would definitely return and manage the firm alongside his father. And sure enough, he returned. It had been a year since his return. But only now did he approach her. Anya lost her head. It was as if some inner light had switched on inside her and everything around became different. Beautiful, with an extraordinary spring aroma, filled with hope that happiness had finally come to her too. Maybe if she had been more confident in herself, not seeing herself as too ordinary and unnoticeable, she wouldn't have plunged headfirst into the whirlpool. But in her state of bliss, Anya lived like that for a while, meeting Alexey every day, then spending nights with him, dreaming that he would surely say those cherished words, after which she would become his fiancée. Anya believed that this man wasn't just by her side for no reason, that he could become the dearest person to her, and that it would be mutual, that Alexey was with her because he wanted happiness too, but only with her. Anya's happiness took on a new shade when she learned she was pregnant. There was no doubt that it was Alexey's child. She imagined what their family would be like, where everyone would love each other. From the capital, her childhood friend Tanya arrived in her native town. They had once been friends, inseparable as they say. But somehow, just in one summer spent apart, because Tanya's parents sent her to stay with her dad in the capital, she returned completely different. And not just because she looked at the locals with mockery, especially her classmates. On the very first day after her arrival, Tanya dragged Anya to a dark corner of the town's only park and pulled out cigarettes. "Want one?" she offered Anya. Startled, Anya shook her head no. She knew and had even seen some girls smoke, but she didn't want to try it herself. She hated the smell of nicotine. And Anya's mom didn't like it either, so her dad, who started smoking in the army but wanted to quit, only smoked on the balcony or outside. But Anya couldn't withstand her friend's pressure and lit up, forever remembering how disgusting it felt, not just in her mouth and throat, but everywhere, as if even her feet were repulsed. She coughed then, and Tanya burst out laughing. But it wasn't just the cigarettes that drove them apart. Tanya started openly making acquaintances with young men, all of them older than her, and she changed these guys so frequently that Anya once asked how she even remembered their names. Tanya just laughed and said, "By my own system, it's too complicated, so I won't explain it to you. You couldn't handle it anyway." After school, Tanya left for the capital right away. The day before, she stopped by to say goodbye and told Anya, "And you're just going to sit in this dump? I feel sorry for you, Anyuta. You need different clothes so you stop blushing over nothing." Later, from the capital, Tanya sent only a couple of letters. She didn't even mention if she'd gotten into school or not, but she wrote that you could learn something new on every corner there. In reality, she was learning the ways of capital life. She found work at a suburban hotel, first as a maid, then as an administrator. She got good at receiving presents for finding spots for last-minute guests during peak season and other little perks. In short, she honed her flirting skills in the capital. She had so many young men there that you couldn't count them all. But problems arose at work. Tanya was fired. So she headed back to her hometown to rest a bit from her stormy personal life that had led nowhere, from constant job stress and from the big city's hustle. But Tanya quickly realized her parents had no extra money, in fact, hardly any at all. And she didn't want to settle for the meager meals her mom puzzled over every day. She was used to a different level. Even if no one had given her apartments or fancy cars, she at least had decent regular lunches and dinners at restaurants. At home, it was the same old eternal money shortage. So Tanya started looking for a job, just for the duration of her vacation with her parents, and she found one. As luck would have it, it wasn't just anywhere, but at Alexey's firm. His secretary had just quit. It turned out Tanya and Alexey had sort of missed each other. He was studying in another city, and by the time he returned, she had left, so they'd never even had a chance to cross paths accidentally before. No, Tanya was a fighter and didn't let the opportunity slip. When she saw him at the firm, she immediately knew this was her chance to try her luck, and she already knew how to start. She demonstrated that she'd excelled as an administrator before. Her speech was polished, her appearance appealing, and she was hired, with a quite decent salary. It was this news that Tanya hurried to share with Anya after years apart. They became friends again. Tanya sensed that Anyata was holding something back, yet she was glowing with happiness. She'd have to get her to open up, but for now, Tanya was eager to announce her good job find. "Tanyusha," Anya said to her, "sorry, but I'm in a hurry. Let's talk tomorrow, okay?" Tanya wasn't surprised at where this quiet Anyata was rushing off to. She'd question her later. There was time, and anyway, Anya didn't need to know the full scope of work Tanya could and was willing to handle, or how this related profession brought her income. In their small, God-forsaken town, affectionate and well-off men were few and far between, but this young firm director would do just fine, and Tanya planned to test that out soon. Anya went to Alexey and wanted to tell him about the child right away. She still couldn't tell which she felt more, joy or anxiety about how Alexey would react. Would he propose marriage on the spot? But things didn't go that way. Anya didn't see much joy on Alexey's face, but he didn't try to talk her out of keeping the child either. His words about needing to think it over carefully seemed a bit odd, but the evening proceeded as usual. Alexey joked, shared stories about how great Europe was, where he'd been several times, and mentioned he'd already picked out a new car, one unlike anything in their town. They continued meeting for a while longer. Anya never heard a proposal from Alexey, but she reassured herself. He'll say it. Alosha will definitely say it. And she avoided bringing up the child again. This is where girls react differently. Some confront the future father, rightly pointing out his involvement, and it often ends in a wedding. Others are too scared to confess, unsure if the news will be welcome. Sometimes the girl's parents get involved, and those interventions turn out in various ways. As for the guy's behavior, there are really only two extremes: marry or break up. The latter might come with the added denial that he's involved at all. Anya knew all this and pondered it at times, but she was convinced that things were different with her and Alosha, so she waited. Tanya dropped by a couple of times, but never got around to detailing the job she'd found here. Her capital friend kept calling, and Tanya, as she put it, was giving master classes. Once, tired of listening, Anya discreetly recorded the conversation on her phone, not even on video. That evening, she glanced at it intending to delete it, but something distracted her and the recording stayed. Now it was impossible not to notice that Alexey was seeing her less often. He explained it with work overload. New partners had emerged. He was personally vetting all deals and contracts, sometimes staying in the office until late at night before heading home and crashing right away. Anya understood and felt sorry for him, offering her help. Alexey replied that she couldn't possibly assist, often adding that the firm's specifics were too complex. Time passed, and her mom had already guessed about the pregnancy. They had a frank talk. Anya was upset by her mom's words upon learning the due date.
Anyata, if it comes to that, don't get rid of the child at home. Promise me you won't do it no matter what."
Why say that, Mom? Anya thought. But she was far more worried about Alosha. She hadn't seen him in 3 weeks. At first, he said he was busy. Then his phone was always out of range. She didn't want to think the worst, didn't want to worry, and that only made her worry more. But it wasn't just her mom who knew about Anya's pregnancy. The town was small, so secrets were hard to keep. Soon, her mom learned that Tanya wasn't just working at Alexey's firm, they were often seen together in his car or at the town's most expensive restaurant. It's not hard to imagine what her mom felt or the town's gossip. People chattered even more than usual. Everyone knew Anyuta as a modest, good girl, just like her parents. Now she was walking around pregnant, and it was no secret from whom. The town had already discussed how Anyuta and Alexey seemed a good match, but who can understand young people? They'd been together for nearly 6 months, and Anyuta had been so happy, probably dreaming of a wedding, which is why she wasn't scared when she realized she was having a child and didn't rush to abort it. The town didn't know that Anyuta's mom would never have allowed her daughter to have an abortion. As a nurse, she knew all too well how a first abortion could end for a girl. At first, while believing Alexey would stay with her and their child, her mom pitied Anyuta and only once hinted that Alexey didn't seem like the serious man she envisions for her daughter. But at the same time, her mom knew the pain it would cause if she truly opened Anyuta's eyes to what was happening. Anyuta opened her own eyes when she saw Alexey kissing Tanya in his new fancy car. "Mom, you knew?" was the first thing Anya asked as she entered the apartment. "I knew," her mom sighed heavily, spreading her hands. "Everyone knows." "Mom, I'm leaving this place." A little more and Anya would have had a breakdown. What words could convince Anyuta that she shouldn't go anywhere? Her mom spoke only of the little person who already existed and was innocent, that he was Anyuta's alone, and theirs too, a grandson or granddaughter. Anya slumped into a chair, covering her face with her hands, then said, "I'm going to him right now. I'll wait all night if I have to. Let him tell me to my face that I should get rid of our child." Her mom couldn't stop her. She stood by the kitchen window, waiting for her daughter to return. Anyuta came back looking calm on the outside. She told her mom, "You know what they said? They, Alexey and Tanya, said they love each other and are getting married soon. What we had was just a mistake." And disgustingly, Alosha added he wasn't sure it was his child. "But now I know for sure, this is only my child." That's when Anyuta's eyes truly opened. The next day, she went for her scheduled checkup at the women's clinic and got a warning. She needed to take care of herself, avoid unnecessary stress, because the baby feels everything. Her mom said the same. For Anyuta, it all aligned so that by the 7th month, everything with Alyosha became crystal clear. It was clear to her, but how the baby felt depended solely on Anyuta. Then, perhaps for the first time in her life, Anyuta got truly angry at her former friend and the man she'd once adored, saying to herself, "I don't need you." And strangely, it made things easier for her. But she knew it was also easier because she had such wonderful parents. Her dad didn't know how to act around his daughter. He was extra careful, even afraid to ask questions, worried he might offend her. He was always so calm. They called him the peaceful Adam. Once he told her mom, "Should I go show that scoundrel where the crayfish winter?" And her mom believed him. She knew he wasn't joking. She calmed him first, then joked, and finally said, "Don't disgrace our daughter." It worked. Later, Anyuta cried quietly. She imagined what her parents were feeling, understood the pain of not being able to protect her, and realized that someday she'd feel the same if she couldn't protect her own child. Now, Anyuta waited for the baby to be born. And suddenly, a blast from the past, she received an invitation to Alexey and Tatiana's wedding. Staring at it, she realized it was either cruel mockery or a sign of elevated relations, casting aside betrayal and making a step toward reconciliation. But no, the second option wasn't for this groom and bride. Anyuta decided she'd go to the wedding. That's when she remembered she had a gift for them,
an original one that everyone, not just the newlyweds, would remember, one that would make her stronger. She wanted to consult her mom, but decided to explain everything later. Around the same time, the future spouses were called Anyuta. They mocked the idea that she should attend their celebration. She's a kind girl and should have long understood that it's all in the past. Forget and move on. Plus, Anyuta's presence would soften the wave of disdain, some stronger, some milder, that friends and neighbors showed them. It didn't bother Alexey and Tanya, but their parents didn't like it. Well, if Anyuta showed up, there'd be less talk among the guests. But it turned out the exact opposite. The wedding was lavish. The town had never seen anything like it. Everything was top tier, designed to make it unforgettable.
And how gracious the groom and bride were, or perhaps just toward Anyuta. When she entered the hall in a wide dress that couldn't hide her belly, bouquet in hand, the couple rose as if on cue and approached her. They both kissed her, displaying eternal friendship and understanding. It turned out a spot for Anyuta had been prepared almost at the head table. Anyuta tried to fit in. She might not have given her gift at all, sticking to the flowers, if the groom and bride hadn't almost chorused, hiding smirks, to ask her for a toast. "You asked for it," Anyuta thought as she stood. The MC quickly brought a microphone. She whispered to him for a minute, asking to play the video. Into the mic, she announced a special gift for the newlyweds. And what a gift it was! Upon receiving the invitation, by some intuition, Anyuta recalled the saved video recording of that conversation. How she'd managed to record it, she didn't know herself. Now, on the big screen, all the guests and the newlyweds saw the bride without her wedding gown, listening to the master class she gave her capital friend. Yes, everyone heard Tanya coaching her distant pal on earning decent money from numerous partners, on snagging bigger fish like the local firm owner she was preparing to attack. She advised her friend to quit her low-paying job and switch careers, ending with a cynical chuckle. The world is big, there's plenty of room to spread out. First, dead silence in the hall. Then Alexey bolted from his seat and fled the restaurant. Sobbing and yelling, "It's a setup," the bride followed, tossing her veil aside. Hysteria ensued with the parents. The groom's mom clutched her heart. Guests simply left. So did Anyuta. As she walked, she listened to herself. Had she really done that? She searched for guilt, but found none, still not understanding why. All the way home, Anyuta tuned into her feelings, finding the answer only at her doorstep. She felt she'd protected her child and would always do so. No, Anyuta wouldn't attack anyone, but now she knew protection was essential. She'd tell this to her parents at home, who had been beside themselves, not knowing where she'd gone. They listened and barely recognized their daughter. Where had this independence, courage, and readiness to stand up for herself come from? But they admitted to themselves that it made them happy. "I swear I will not let anyone humiliate or deceive me, and I'll absolutely let it happen to my child," she told them. She waited a moment, fearing memories of the restaurant would make her cry. But no, she'd never cry over Tanya and Alexey. Tanya left the next day. She'd have bolted straight from the restaurant, but she lacked the strength then, so she'd remain as she was, perhaps just more cautious. Could Tanya change? Maybe, if she wanted to. Alexey filed for divorce the next day, shocking the registry office staff. It was a local record for the shortest marriage. But soon, rumors of the previous night's banquet and its video film reached them. Locals would retell it for ages. They divorced without her presence. Tanya desperately wanted to flee the town, and Alexey experienced such humiliation for the first time. Shame followed, something he hadn't felt in years. Now it consumed him for not bothering to see whom he'd traded for whom. But that wasn't all. For the first time, Alexey thought about the child soon to be born. He knew he was the father, but also knew she wouldn't let him near. Anyuta gave birth to a son. Amazingly, she wasn't scared. She followed the midwife's instructions, and her mom was allowed in.
They believed everything would be fine. Anyuta didn't know her dad was pacing the corridor and enduring more than she was. Then she vowed to be for her child what her parents were for her. She heard the first cry, saw her mom wipe away tears, and suddenly understood clearly she'd do anything for her son. They let her see him, and Anyuta realized her happiness had a face, this tiny one. She also realized she'd become a mom with a son. A small crib stood nearby. She'd gaze at him as long as she wanted. Then they placed him in her arms for the first time. Pure happiness. An hour later, a nurse entered the room. She said the firm director, Alexey, had been pacing outside the maternity hospital for 3 hours. He knew she'd had a son. Anything to pass on? The nurse asked. Anyuta looked at her in surprise. I don't know why he's out there, probably lost. And she was right. He was lost. Let him find himself. Neither Anyuta nor her son will help. Everything in life has a price. Whether Alexey had truly seen the light or was just pretending, Anyuta didn't know. But one day, Anyuta couldn't hold back when he kept approaching during walks, offering money and claiming, "He's my son too." She told him, "You won't believe it, but I hold no grudge against you. I just don't know if every girl you've deceived and humiliated feels the same. All I want is to raise my son nothing like you. Maybe someday I'll tell him who his father is. Maybe you'll talk then. But know this, I'll never let anyone hurt my son. I've learned to defend us, so go on living, Alexey, but live without us."